This one simple concept can ultimately change the trajectory of your artist career. I asked this question on the podcast that is, what would your new genre be if you had to create a new genre around your style of music? And I once got this answer, and he said universal music. As well intentioned as that answer is, it is a very, very poor idea in terms of trying to present yourself as an artist. If you market yourself as someone that makes music for everyone, you essentially are saying that you make music for no one. And here's why. The more specific something is, the more we can assess how much we need that thing or how much we can connect with that particular idea. For example, if your friend tells you that they went through a breakup, you automatically know what that means and likely know what that has felt like. But if your friend tells you that they broke up with their boyfriend because their boyfriend cheated on them with their ex, that's a completely different situation. If you had that same thing happen to you, you will understand what they're feeling on a new level and will be able to connect in an even deeper way than you were when it was just a typical breakup. Part of the human experience is that we have gone through a lot of the same things, and they may not look exactly the same way, and our journeys may have been different, and the characters involved may have played different roles, but ultimately there are a lot of feelings that every individual goes through at some point in time. This is exactly why we have a lot of songs about love, a lot of songs about going through something unfortunate, and a lot of songs about just genuinely great days. But what's different is how those stories are particularly told. Now, circling back to the question at hand, when he said universal music, I loved it as an idea. In a way, I agreed because I had heard his music, and it is the kind of music that anybody could be listening to. But that doesn't mean that that's who it's for. When it comes to an artist's overall fan base, there will be core characteristics of a given fan base that kind of can give you an idea of who your audience ultimately is. For example, Taylor Swift's audience is probably anywhere from teenage girls to like women in their like 30s, but it's primarily for a female audience. Not to say that there aren't men who enjoy her music or even older people outside of her general demographic range that will enjoy her music, but that's not specifically who it's written for. If we take a generalized approach and aren't specific about who we are ultimately serving with what we're doing as artists, then we don't know how to specifically target those individuals. A good way to think about it is like the popular kids in high school. Those kids were popular because they were a finite group. They weren't all-encompassing. They weren't this huge group of people. If they were to bring more and more people into their group, they would become less and less popular because they would be taking up more of the population. In that same way, the more we sort of spread our target audience, the less that we will actually hit where we are trying to go. It's essentially like you're moving further and further away from the dartboard and still expecting to hit a bullseye. Some of the artists that we see truly, really thrive are ones that know exactly who they are for and exactly what they are creating. And not to say that you don't have a sense of who you are as an artist and the kind of art that you want to make, but if you don't know who it ultimately will be for, then you ultimately won't start to gain that trajectory. Now, the reason that I said that this can change the trajectory of your artistry is if you can find who your audience is, you will find your fans and you will develop those fans. Without fans, artists' careers truly wouldn't exist because those are the ones that indirectly fund our projects. They're the ones that will go to shows, and they're the ones that will buy merch, and they are the ones that will subscribe to our email lists to know everything and anything about what we are doing. And like I said, in theory, it's great to think I'm creating music for everyone. Everyone can find something in my music that is for them. But people by nature don't want to just be another face in the crowd. People want that sort of attention and to think, oh, this music was made for me. It's almost as if the more specific and defined you get, the more of a true audience that you will cultivate. Swifties are a great example of a cult-like following. They will do and say anything Taylor Swift wants because she knows exactly who her music is for, and those cult-like followers are who the music is for. This also helps in creating content where you can get more specific and tell more stories and unleash more parts of you and your artistry through your content. If you advertise something as, I broke up with my boyfriend, so I wrote this song, people aren't going to be as interested as if you were to say any specific details about it and how they might be able to connect with it further. Like I said, we have all gone through very similar experiences. So if we can tap into that and unleash more details, the more people will really understand our situation and be able to connect it to their own lives. Even if it didn't happen to them, they will still be able to put it in their own perspective. It's just like when your friends tell you a story about something that happened to them and you say, oh, that's like if so-and-so did this to so-and-so, and put it in your own sort of perspective. It doesn't make sense on the surface that the more specific we get, the more clear our story ultimately is. But really think about it in the way of the more details you give, the more clear the picture becomes. You can't just paint a few lines and say it's a house. You have to have a door and windows and a front yard and whatever else. The details ultimately almost matter more than the big picture. And I know one of the hardest tasks as an independent artist is finding who your audience really is, but look at what you're writing about, look at what you stand for, and look at who that might suit. The more that you can define what you're doing and how you're doing it, the more people will be able to understand who you are and what you're all about and why they should care. Why they should care is the biggest piece of the puzzle, because if you can't convince people to care about what you're doing, you won't be going anywhere. So to move back to the original point, there's no such thing as universal music. Yes, there are those songs that we hear time and time again that I could be listening to just as much as someone who's in a completely different demographic could be listening to as well. We all have our random interests and our guilty pleasure types of music and all of those things that make us who we are. But that doesn't mean that because I listen to this kind of music, I am automatically in that target audience. Lean into the details and lean into being as specific as you can about what you're doing and why you're doing it, because that's what people will care about. It's easier to tell your own story than to explain to someone why what you're doing is something that they should care about. Showing someone why something matters is much different than trying to convince them that they should care. Don't tell me I should listen to your song because of X, Y, and Z. Show me the details of the story and I will be interested if it's something that fits for me. If you have a story that I can connect with, odds are I will also enjoy the song. You almost want to present your artistry as something exclusive because people like to try and become a part of things that are very niche and that are very specific in what they are all about and what they represent. By human nature, we don't want to be just another face in the crowd. We want to be something of value and we want to be a part of something. Everybody wants to be included in some way, shape, or form. Think of your artistry like a club, and if you make your club something that accepts everybody, less people will be interested in being a part of it. But if you start to get more specific about what you're doing and really define the terms in which people can join the club, that will ultimately reflect a lot of interest. To put it straight up in business terms, the more there is supply, the less there is demand. You don't have to be outwardly exclusive and reject potential fans, but if you get definitive and you get specific about your music and your artistry, people will start to care and take notice. If you think you sound like a particular artist, look at what their audience looks like. If you see certain friends of yours that are taking a particular interest in your music, not just because they're your friends, look at who they are as people and look at what they contribute to being an audience member. The more you release music and the more you put content out, the more it will start to make sense. Who is your audience and who isn't? And then you can lean into that more. To provide another example, think of the videos when people were doing, to put it in content terms, it's like the videos where someone says, if you're not so-and-so, keep scrolling. We automatically are interested and intrigued in what's going on, even though we don't fit the criteria. We just want to be a part of something. So as an artist, you have to create something that people are going to want to be a part of. Build something new and build something interesting enough that people will want to be a part of it. It's the best way for you to find your version of the Swifties. If you found value in this video, please subscribe to our newsletter and follow us across other social media platforms. Thanks for watching.